My name is Sylvie. I'm 39 years old, and I run a cyber crisis response team. After my team and I brought 4 hospitals back online in a single night, my face ended up all over the national news. A short interview I gave in the parking lot was viewed nearly 4 million times. That night, I checked my phone 11 times, because somewhere inside me I was hoping to hear from my father, the man I had spent 8 years waiting to truly see me. His message came at 11:40 p.m. "Can you come home this weekend?" My eyes burned. I sat down on the edge of my bed. 40 seconds later, another message appeared. "We want you to speak at the launch of our new customer app. People trust you." My father had not seen his daughter on the news. He had seen a name he could use. To understand why that hurt so much, we need to go back 8 years. When a system is breached, I am the person who walks in during the worst hours of the crisis and decides what gets saved first. I now lead a team of 9. Most of our work happens between 2 and 6 in the morning, while the people paying us are at home unable to sleep. My father, Emmett, and my mother, Lorna, ran the grocery store chain my grandfather had started with a single location. They had 11 stores across 2 counties and more than 400 employees. I was 31, and my company was one bad month away from disappearing. I had 3 clients, and one of them regularly paid late. With the money I had left, I could either pay the 2 people who worked for me or keep my apartment. I chose my employees. Then I drove to my parents' house and asked if I could stay in my old bedroom for a few weeks. My father has told people a different version of this story, so let me be clear. I did not ask for money. I did not ask for a loan or an investment. I did not ask for a single dollar. I asked to sleep in a room that had been empty for 9 years. My mother was in the kitchen. There was a block of cheese on the counter and a knife in her hand. My father let me finish without interrupting. Then he said, "You chose the computer life. You can deal with the consequences of the computer life." The computer life. 400 people in his company depended on refrigeration systems, logistics software, and card readers to receive their paychecks. Yet he talked about my work as if I had chosen some expensive hobby. He said his own father had never given him anything. That was technically true, as long as you ignored the 11 grocery stores his father had handed him. My mother stayed by the counter and said nothing. I think I would have settled for hearing her say my name. But she kept cutting the cheese. I could be angry at my father's words. I could argue with them. I could wait for him to apologize one day. But I could not hold my mother's silence in my hands. I could not argue with it, and I knew I would never receive an apology for it. 8 years later, I can still see her hands. Welcome back to Rose Untold Stories, where the deepest family betrayals are rarely the loudest, and where quiet women finally stop mistaking being needed for being loved. Tonight's story is about a daughter who built a life without the family that turned her away, only to receive the call she had secretly waited years for, and discover that the truth was nothing like she had imagined. That night, I slept on the couch in my friend Nadine's office. She ran a small bookkeeping practice 2 floors below my old office. She asked me one question. "Do you want me to turn the lights off?" For 3 weeks, she left a small lamp burning on top of the filing cabinet so I would not walk into anything in the dark. Every morning, I woke up to a cup of coffee she had placed on the desk. Nadine gave me a couch without asking me to explain why I deserved it. On the final day, I tried to thank her. She waved me off. "The couch was uncomfortable anyway," she said. She has never mentioned it since, and I never asked my family for anything again. It was not a grudge. It was a security decision. You do not keep knocking on a door that never opens. I am not going to sit here and tell you how hard I worked. Everyone works hard, and half of them still fail. What mattered was who called me. My first clients were small medical offices whose patient records had been locked, family businesses whose dispatch systems had gone down, and frightened business owners who woke up to ransom messages on their screens. Nobody hired me because I was impressive. They hired me because I answered the phone. My second client was a 62-bed nursing home whose medication scheduling system had failed. The administrator, a woman named Bertha who had worked there for 26 years, called me at 10 at night. She was nearly beside herself, because a nursing home without a medication schedule is a dangerous building. I worked from 10 that night until 8 the next morning. When the system came back online, Bertha cried into the phone. 3 weeks later, a large card arrived at my office. 40 residents had signed it. Some of the signatures were shaky. Others were only initials. A woman named Pearl had written her name and drawn a small flower beside it. That card followed me from the wall above Nadine's couch to every office I worked in afterward. Now let me tell you about the night that changed everything. On a Tuesday evening, the system connecting 4 hospitals in our region went down. Patient records were gone. Allergy information was gone. There was no record of which medication a patient had been given 2 hours earlier. 2 surgical teams in the middle of procedures could not access the images they needed. They called me at 7:40. I was there by 8:15. For the first 2 hours, we fixed nothing. We had to understand how far the attack had spread before we could touch anything. While we did that, 4 hospitals continued operating on paper and human memory. At midnight, I shut down a system that was technically still working. It was the only way to stop the attack from spreading. An administrator asked if I was certain. I was not. Yes, I said. That is the job. At 4 in the morning, a nurse manager appeared in the doorway of the room where we were working. She had been on duty since 3 the previous afternoon. She was holding a cup of coffee she was not drinking. Just tell me if it's going to be tonight or tomorrow. Tonight, I said. The core clinical systems came back online at 6:10 that morning. I watched a charge nurse pull up a patient list, place both hands flat on the desk, and lean against them for a moment. Then I went down to the parking garage. For a while I felt nothing. That happens in this job. The feelings usually arrive later, somewhere you are not expecting them. A local news station had been outside the hospital all night. They filmed us leaving the building at 7 that morning. A reporter stopped me in the parking lot and asked why hospitals kept being attacked. Because for years, security was treated like an expense, I said. But security is the price of being allowed to hold people's lives on a computer. The clip spread to other networks and was viewed nearly 4 million times online. By that evening, there were 400 messages in my inbox. 2 clients sent flowers. Nadine sent me 3 words. Look at you. But the message I was waiting for still had not come. I checked my phone 11 times. I was not waiting for an apology. I did not need my father to tell me he was sorry about the room. I only wanted to know that he had seen me. If he had sent one message saying, "I saw you on the news," I would have been nearly 40 years old, grinning at my phone like an idiot. At 11:40 that night, his name appeared in the family group chat. The group had been nearly silent for 2 years except for announcements about the stores. "Can you come home this weekend?" For 40 seconds I let myself believe he had seen me and that maybe he was proud. Then the second message appeared. "We want you to speak at the launch of our new customer app. People trust you." I read the message again and again, as though staring at it long enough might turn it into something else. My father did not want to congratulate me. He wanted to use the trust people had placed in me to help his company. Before I tell you what happened when I went home, I want to know who is here with me tonight. Tell me in the comments what city you are watching from, and what time it is where you are. I read your comments at strange hours because I keep strange hours, and I like knowing who else is still awake. Because that weekend, I went back to my family's house. Of course I did. Saturday. I told myself I would hear him out. The stores had built an app. I knew that much from the family group, which had contained almost nothing for 2 years except store announcements, loyalty program, digital coupons, curbside ordering, saved payment methods. Big rollout planned for the biggest shopping weekend of the year, campaign already booked. He walked me through it in the den with a laptop on his knees, more animated than I had seen him in a decade. He kept saying platform. My father has never said platform in his life. Then he told me what he wanted. 30 seconds on stage at the launch. Introduced as his daughter, the cyber expert, the one from the hospital story. Standing next to him while people took pictures, I asked what he expected me to say. Just that it's safe. That people can trust it. I asked when I would be reviewing it. He looked at me like the question was rude. "Sylvie, we've got a whole team on this. 1.5 years they've been at it. So I asked the only question that matters. Penetration test results. External audit. Anything from a third party." There was a pause. I have replayed a great deal since. We're past all that. We're 2 weeks out. And there it was in my father's den. I knew everything I needed to know about that application, and I had not touched a line of it. I told him no. I do not stand behind systems I have not examined. Not for anyone, ever. If I did it once for family, my name would be worth nothing to the hospital, the nursing home, the daycare woman, or any client I have. What he was asking for was not a favor. It was a loan against my credibility, and I do not lend that out. He got very calm, which is his version of shouting. I had gotten too big for the family. Success had changed me. I was embarrassed by my own last name, standing in a house that groceries paid for. My mother was in the kitchen. 8 years later, different cheese. She did not argue with him, but when I reached for my coat, she followed me into the hall and pressed the old blue travel mug I had used through college into my hand. "You do not have to put your name on something you have not seen," she said so quietly I almost thought I had imagined it. Then my father called her from the den and she went back without waiting for an answer. I drove home fine, and then somewhere around the county line I was not fine, and I pulled into a gas station and sat with the engine off for a while. Then I went back to work, because we were busy. 4 weeks later my phone rang at 4:50 in the morning. My father. He had never called me at that hour in his life. I knew before I answered, the app had launched. 2 weeks in, on the Friday night that starts the biggest shopping period of the year, something got in through it and then got out of it into everything else. Registers down in all 11 stores. Online orders stopped. Employee payroll system locked. And customer records, names, addresses, partial card data, saved payment methods, sitting exposed somewhere that should never have been reachable from a customer-facing app in the first place. He did not apologize on that call. People always assume there was a moment of grace in there. There was not. You know this stuff. Come fix it. Second time in this story, I sat down on the edge of my bed. Understand my decision. Because I get asked about it more than anything else. I did not go for him. I went because 400 and some employees were about to have their direct deposits fail, and because somewhere in that mess were the names and addresses of people who shop at those stores. A lot of older customers across 2 counties who would never know they had been exposed and could do nothing about it if they did. That was enough. But I did not go as a daughter. I called the office at 5 in the morning, woke 2 of my people, and we went in as a firm. Engagement letter. Defined scope. Standard rate. I sent the paperwork before I got in the car, and my father signed it at 6:30 without reading it, which tells you most of what you need to know about how his company got there. We arrived a little after 7. Fluorescent lights, a conference room, 6 people who had not slept. Under 2 hours to know this was not bad luck. Their technical lead was a guy named Devin, maybe 30, and when I sat down with him, his hands were shaking slightly and there was a folder in front of him. I have seen that exact thing before, and it is never guilt. It is somebody who has been trying to tell people something for a long time. He pushed the folder toward me. Look at the dates. 4 memos, spread across the year before launch. Same category of problem every time. Each with a recommendation and a cost estimate. 2 of them recommended delaying the launch outright. I asked what happened to them. They got answered, every time. Same answer. We were being conservative and we'd handle it in phase 2. Then he said the thing I have quoted in maybe 6 client meetings since. There's never a phase 2. There's only the phase where it breaks. Then I looked at the budget, because I always look at the budget, fastest way to understand any organization. People will lie to you all day. A spreadsheet just sits there. The money allocated for security infrastructure had been moved. Nothing criminal, nothing stolen. Just moved. The way money moves when somebody has decided the visible thing matters more than the invisible thing. Into the app's front end, the design, the campaign, the launch event, and an expansion plan my father had been talking about for 2 years. The breach was not the attack. The breach was a decision made 11 months earlier in a room with a spreadsheet. Nobody gets hacked in the moment they get hacked. They get hacked back when somebody decided the campaign mattered more. By 10 in the morning I had the shape of it, and I had a problem. We could not save everything at once. Not drama. Capacity. Finite hours, finite hands, and every hour spent on one thing is an hour not spent on another. So I put it on a whiteboard for my father and 2 executives, plainly, in 2 columns. Column 1. Payroll system, customer data exposure, basic in-store payment infrastructure. Employees get paid, customers get notified and protected. Stores can take money for groceries. Column 2. The app back online for the shopping weekend, so the campaign survives. Not both. I said not both 4 different ways. 2 of the executives understood immediately. My father did not, because he did not want to. He asked how long the app would take. The app was not coming back that weekend under any scenario, because the app was the door they came in through. Reopening it before it was rebuilt is getting robbed, and then leaving the door open to see whether it happens twice, which is when my father said the thing that ended a great deal between us. Then step back and let our people handle the app. You've done your part. He wanted me out. Not because he believed his team could do it, because I was the only person in the building who was going to keep saying no, and my name was going on a report, and the report was going to the board. I asked whether he was terminating the engagement. He said no, of course not, just the app piece, will take that in-house. His people had told him 4 times in writing that it was not ready. He wanted to hand it back to them so they could tell him yes. I told him no, and I told him why. His team had been right for a year, and had been overruled every time, so the problem was not their competence. It was who they reported to. Hand the app back to that same chain of command, and we would be doing this again in 6 months with worse consequences, and I was not putting my firm's name on that outcome. If he removed the app from our scope and reopened it against our recommendation, my firm would withdraw from the entire engagement and document exactly why. Then I did what I had said I would do. We moved payroll to an isolated environment. It ran on time. Every employee got paid on the normal day, and most of them never knew how close it came. We locked down the exposed customer data. The company had time to delay the notification. I told the board not to use it. They agreed, and the notice went out Sunday, plainly written, with no corporate language, telling people exactly what had been exposed and exactly what to do about it. Basic payment processing was back in all 11 stores by Saturday afternoon, so people could buy groceries. And until the board decided, I kept the app offline. Not as a temporary maintenance measure. I recommended in writing, in a formal report, that the application be decommissioned entirely and rebuilt from the ground up with a proper security architecture, and that it not return in its existing form under any circumstances. The board accepted the recommendation over my father's objection in a meeting he was in the room for. That is the part he has never gotten over. I did not kill his app. 5 other people read a report and decided they did not want to be the ones who overruled it. They went further than that. They approved the plan to hire an independent technical lead reporting directly to the board, which meant that from that week forward, my father could no longer move a security budget line by himself. He kept his title. He did not keep that. The campaign was canceled. The expansion plan died. A year of talking about a growth strategy, gone. I did not destroy his company. All 11 stores are still open, and everyone who worked there still works there. I refused to let the employees and the customers pay the bill for a decision he made in a budget meeting. Which brings me to the third thing he asked me for. 10 days in, when the worst was behind us and the building smelled like a normal office again instead of cold coffee and fear, my father came and found me in the small conference room I had been using. He shut the door. That was new. He sat down across from me, tired in a way I had never seen, and for one entire second, I thought something honest was about to happen. There's a press thing tomorrow morning. I waited. He wanted me on camera, local media. Say the incident was fully resolved, the systems were secure, customers could shop with confidence. He had it worked out. My face, my credibility, the woman from the hospital story, standing there saying it was fine. Customers were scared. A familiar name would settle them. Then he leaned forward and used the softest voice I have ever heard out of him. People believe you, Sylvie. You could put this family back on its feet. There it was, the whole staircase, in order, and from that chair I could see all 3 steps at once. First my name, then my knowledge. Now the trust it took me 8 years and 1,000 bad nights to build, so he could spend it covering the thing he did. 8 years I had been waiting for that man to see me. It ended in that chair, with a whiteboard behind me covered in his failures, watching my own father look at the most valuable thing I own and see a resource that had become available. I told him no. He asked why not, and I gave him the most personal answer I had given anyone in that entire building. People don't trust me because of my name. They trust me because they know I say the true thing even when it costs somebody. The second I stand up there and call this fixed when it isn't, that's gone. Not damaged, gone. And it does not come back. Because it was not fixed, that is what he could not hold in his head. The incident was contained. But a company that moved its security budget into a marketing campaign does not become secure because 10 days went by. It becomes secure when it changes how it decides things, and at that point nothing in that building had changed how it decided things yet. He said I was abandoning my family. Again. That word again did a great deal of work, and I said the sentence I had been carrying around for 8 years. The night you wouldn't give me a room, you told me to figure it out on my own. I did. Now it's your turn. He did not say anything to that. I left them a remediation plan, 40-some pages, a phased budget, and the implementation steps for the independent technical lead the board had approved. I sat with Devin for 2 hours and went through it line by line, because he was going to be the one carrying it. Last thing I did in that building was take my badge off and set it on the conference table. Then I drove home, slept 14 hours, and did not check my phone once. They had to do the press conference themselves. 2 executives and my father, in front of local cameras, with nobody standing beside them to say it was fine. So they had to say what actually happened. Security warnings raised internally and not acted on. Application launched before it was ready. Customer information exposed, and the company responsible for it. I did not watch it live. Nadine sent the link, and I watched it a week later on a Tuesday night with the sound low. My father is not a good liar in front of a camera. I had never had occasion to know that before. He looked like a man reading a document somebody else wrote about him. Here is the rest of it. The stores are open. All 11. Business is smaller, and the growth plan is gone. The independent technical lead started that spring, and Devin got promoted into a role where somebody actually has to answer his memos. The app never came back. Something simpler launched about a year later, built properly. I know that only because a client mentioned it. My father has never apologized. Not for the room, not for the launch, not for the camera. I stopped counting on it a while ago, and it has been a considerable relief. My mother sent me a message a few weeks after the press conference. I saw the news. You were right. That is all of it. Not an apology. She has still never said one word to me about that kitchen, or that night, or the years. I read it about 40 times, and I decided to take it. Not because it repaired anything. It did not. But I remembered the travel mug in the hallway and the sentence she had barely managed to say. Maybe the woman standing silently at that counter had not been entirely on his side. Maybe she was a person who had spent an entire marriage learning that her opinion cost more than it was worth, until speaking felt like lifting something she no longer had the strength for. Not a hero. Not a villain. A very common way for a person to end up. We talk sometimes now. Not about any of this. About nothing, mostly. Which is fine. The card is still on my wall. 40 signatures and a small flower drawn beside the name Pearl. I looked at it a lot during those 10 days. Because when my father wanted me to step back so his people could rush that app open, what he was gambling with was the exact kind of people who signed that card. People like the residents of that 62-bed home. 40 of them had signed that card. People just like them lived across those 2 counties, shopped at those stores, and trusted the company with information they had never agreed to put at risk. Pearl passed 3 years ago. Bertha told me. She was 91, and she had a good run. She drew a flower on a card for a stranger who fixed a computer, and years later her flower is the reason I did not do what my father wanted. A reputation is not fame, and it is not your name on a screen. It is the accumulated weight of every time you told somebody the truth when a lie would have been easier. And it belongs to the people who trusted you, not to you. Which is why you cannot lend it out. It was never yours to lend. My family did not have a room for me when I had nothing. 8 years later, I gave them the knowledge they needed because there were people in that building and in those stores who deserved it. I did not give them the lie they wanted. I kept my name. If somebody has ever come back into your life only after you became useful, I want to hear about it. Tell me what they asked you for, and whether you said yes. There is no wrong answer here. Plenty of us said yes, and I understand exactly why. And if you are in the middle of building something nobody in your family has noticed yet, stay close by. Subscribe. Someday somebody is going to notice, and I would like you to already know what your name is worth before they do. I'll see you in the next one.